Hey, it's Shawn with Kivi. Welcome back to our series on straps and chains. Up until now, we've talked about some fairly basic, straightforward things with our straps and chains, but occasionally we get into situations where the normal stuff doesn't work and you need some additional tools to work with. One of the additional tools that we have on our trailers is the J-plates. So these J-plates are made to use with either straps or chains, 2-inch straps, 4-inch straps, or chains. They have a 6,700 pound working load limit on them, so they're rated at just a little bit more than a 3/8 grade 70 chain. And the most common place that you're going to use them is here at the edge of the trailer in this track. And this one is being used in a way that would be not harmful to the plate. They're meant to be used so that the J can aim in the same direction as your angle of pull of your fastener, so that the plate can self-align with the angle of the fastener. Later on, we'll revisit some ways to do this the wrong way. In fact, let's show that right now. So now here's that same tie down set up with the J plate set with the J facing outward instead of inward. And what happens is the bottom part of the J bottoms out in the track and it's restricted in its movement. It can't align with the chain anymore, and so then you get a lot of leverage on this part of the plate right here where it's thin, and this will actually harm them. This is something to avoid. And what happens a lot of times is you've got a piece of freight that's too close by, and in order to get these plates into the track, you've got to be able to lay them down flat on the trailer and then stand them up. But if you've got something nearby, you can't do that. So then the temptation is to put it in from the other way, but this one has been used incorrectly in the same way that we've got set up here, and you see what happened to it. It got bent there where it should be straight. So be cautious about that. Another way that happens is if you've got an oversized load and your fastener needs to go out to the outside of the trailer. It's tempting to still put them in the way you normally would, hauling a normal regular dimension load. But again, if your fastener is going out, this needs to align with it. If it bottoms out in the track, you're going to bend it over backwards and cause damage to it right there. So if that's the case, then you have to come up with a different solution. Okay, now we've set up another tie down here using the track that's inward. You've got the track at the edge of the trailer, but also this is the top of the frame rail of the trailer, so that's really strong, and they've provided a J-track just on the outside. This track on the inside is not intended for the J-plates to use, but the outside one you can. And again, the plates can face either outward or inward on that, depending on if you've got oddly shaped cargo. So this one is being shown used correctly. This chain is pulling toward the passenger side of the trailer, and you can see the angle of the plate is the same as the angle of the chain, so it's going to be safe for the J-plate. It's not going to damage it. If we were to put the plate in the other way and pull on it, then it's going to damage that plate and possibly cause it to fail. Something to be aware of when you're using the J-plates to pull at an angle. Every place there's a floor cross member underneath the deck of the trailer, there's a bolt in the bottom of the track. So in order to keep this plate from sliding, it has to be seated up against that bolt. So if this chain were going to pull this direction, it would need to be seated up against this bolt over here. Another thing to think about too is, like on your step decks where you've got a wheel well opening, and there's 3 of those on each side of the trailer, the frame gets pretty thin right here. So you can use it for tie down for lighter items, but I wouldn't recommend using this for significantly heavy items, heavy pieces of equipment, for example. Now we've got a J-plate set up using a strap, a 2-inch strap, and using a 4-inch strap would be the same here. Hooking into these can be a little bit of a cautionary thing. I'm just using the hook to hook into it, which there is a little bit of risk of that coming unhooked if the strap were to come loose. But if you decide to do a DOT wrap like you would do on the rub rail, you want to be cautious because this opening in the J-plate is pretty sharp, so it could cut your strap. So instead of just doing a half wrap, I would recommend doing a full wrap so that the hook comes back around to the same orientation that it's in now. Then you've got a rounded surface that you're pulling on. And again, be cautious about that alignment issue. You can see this strap has got an angle toward the center of the trailer. So we've got the J facing in toward the center of the trailer. If we were to put the J facing toward the outside of the trailer and have this similar angle on this, you can see that would be a situation that would cause that bend in that plate. So now we change that and we put in a damaged plate that's been used incorrectly at one point, and we showed what could happen to this one because that's bottomed out against the bottom of the track there, and the pressure point comes here. That's where your failure point is going to be. Another cautionary thing that you don't want to do is hook a chain or a binder directly into the plate. Just like we don't do that on the rub rail, we can't hook chains and binders directly to the rub rail on an aluminum trailer like this. This piece of aluminum won't stand up to that either, so you don't want to hook your chain or binder directly into them. Earlier in the video we showed using a teardrop on one of these, and that's probably your best option. But a section option would be to do a broken chain technique where your tension chain comes down, goes around your attachment point and back to your binder. So that avoids having to hook that binder or the chain directly into the J plate. Now you're pulling on a couple of links of chain there instead of the bottom of that hook. So inspect your equipment. If you see these that are bent, I would suggest not to use them because they've been abused on a previous occasion. This one was being used correctly on the day that it broke, but on a previous occasion it had been used incorrectly and bent over backwards and then flexing going down the road, weakened that aluminum. So then on the day that it failed, even though it was being used correctly, the aluminum was weak and the driver only made it less than a mile down the road after securing a load, and this thing separated. Luckily the load stayed on the trailer, but you might not be so lucky. These things are an awesome tool. You just have to be a little bit cautious with them, just like anything else that you do, and you'll have a safe trip.